Part 1. Preparing for the journey. Chapter 1. Point of departure. As part of our travel plans, we should know where we are coming from, where we are at the present moment. To do this, we need to establish a benchmark, a reference point in measuring our attitudes and beliefs, and make an honest appraisal of our spiritual understanding. In essence, we want to look at how much unnecessary baggage we've been carrying around and get rid of everything except essentials. Remember, we want to travel light. First, how much do we know? And what is truth? The ancients said it was thoughts in conformity to reality. Whose reality? It's easy to see how the subject of truth can turn into philosophical white water. So let's go back to what we believe. And to do that, we only have to look at our lives. We are what we believe. If we are experiencing illness, limitation, and friction, we are believing in lies that have become our truth. A victim consciousness dissents, unworthiness produces failure, guilt calls for punishment, and fear attracts that which is feared. There was a lunch counter on the first floor of the office building where I worked back in the 1970s. While I was grabbing a quick bite one day, a man came in and sat on the stool with me. He ordered the blue plate special and said, "Worst food in town." Then proceeded with an angry tirade about the crime wave that was engulfing the city and the thieving and murdering animals that were lurking in every shadow. It was obvious the man lived in fear, and his parting words were, "Guess I'm going to have to get myself a gun." I've often wondered what happened to him. If we were watching and listening from the other side of the veil to determine and predominate truth registered in the collective consciousness, we would conclude that it is indeed a state of fear. How can fear be represented as truth? Convictions of perceived reality constitute the lowest level of what the human considers his or her truth. And to most people, fear is a fundamental fact of life. Therefore, what is feared is believed. It becomes a person's truth, and this fear truth can be expressed in one or two ways: as an inhibited life or withdrawal from the world to escape the object of fear, or as aggression to mask the fear and satisfy a need at any cost. In both cases, there's an ability to trust God and the natural process of life. But it is the people in the second category who are triggering a dangerous reaction in the mild. The unified mental emotional depository is now weighted heavily in favor of the idea objectives must be achieved regardless of the consequences to others, that the end always justifies the means, with actions corresponding to that mindset. For some, this is translated into reaching goals as a tunnel vision workaholic. It means anything goes in the great pursuit, and people who get in the way are nothing more than pawns in a master game of desire fulfillment. The darker the mind with fear, the more unreasonable the deed, which often results in fanaticism in the name of God, country, and any cause to which the individual is paying allegiance. And fanaticism leads to terrorism, acts of force to threaten, intimidate, and cause injury and death based on a belief. What a person believes becomes that person's truth, with or without any moral or ethical foundation. We see this in the subjugation of women in the family unit, the countless reports of abuse, marital rape, and other tyrannical behavior. We can see it in racial conflicts and in the treatment of minorities, in the underhanded scheming and manipulation in the workplace to achieve one's ends, in the shabby machinations on every level of government, and in religious intolerance throughout the world. So what do? We begin by changing our own thoughts and perceptions and focus on what we believe as our way of preparing for the journey to the higher altitudes. How close is our truth to the truth? And what is the truth? The truth represents the eternal varieties from our Creator that have been known by the masters of wisdom since the beginning of time. For example, God is the infinite absolute of all good Creator, the sum total of all energies, forever one with its creations, loving fully and expressing completely in every good and perfect way. My religious background began in the Baptist church, Sunday school mostly. Then one Sunday, when I was 9 or 10, I went into the church with the big people and heard the preacher talk about the punishing God. I thought that man was insane and never went back to that church. I found other places of worship that placed the emphasis on a loving God, which I intuitively knew was the truth. When a violent, judging, punishing God is talked about in the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, the reference not to the supreme deity, but to a God created in the image of man and projected into the world as an arrogant, angry, jealous ruler. Contrary to the Jesus' teachings, the early church accepted this view of God. Clement, Bishop of Rome, wrote that God, the God of Israel, alone rules all things. He is the Lord and Master whom all must obey. He is the judge that lays down the law, punishing rebels and rewarding the obedient. God, Clement continues, delegates his authority of reign to rulers and leaders on earth. Who are those designated rulers? Clement answers that they are bishops, priests, and deacons. Whoever refuses to bow the neck and obey the church leaders is guilty of insubordination against the divine master himself. Carried away with this argument, Clement warns that whoever disobeys the divinely ordained authorities receives the death penalty. His God was obviously created in the image of man and remains as part of the collective consciousness. It is difficult to understand why the belief in a false God continues when for thousands of years the true God has been revealed by the saints, sages, mystics, and masters in every culture, race, and religion. There is only an infinitely loving God whose mind could not conceive of anything so humanly created as a pit of fire for lost souls. There are no lost souls because we are a part of God and God cannot be lost. This is a benevolent universe with consciousness as the key to life on every plane of existence. God does not give, take away, reward, or punish. God is love indwelling, forever expressing all that is good, true, and beautiful in life, nurturing, nourishing, caring, never judging, angry, or indicative. Such a God could not exist except in our minds. So let's remove from consciousness any false and limiting ideas concerning our Father, Mother, Creator. The truth about yourselves. Each person is God in expression as individual being. Whether we have realized it or not, we are immortal spiritual beings temporarily clothed in a physical body. God, as all persons, is a truth honored by every culture of antiquity. Voltaire said that Plato should have been canonized by the Christian Church for being the first propounder of the Christus mystery, the indwelling Christ, the true self of everyone. He contributed more to its fundamental doctrines than any other single individual. A few hundred years later, Paul confirmed Plato's understanding when he wrote about the mystery which has been hid from ages and from generations. Christ in you, the hope of glory. And Christ lived in me. In the Nag Hammadi texts, discovered in Egypt in 1945 and considered older than New Testament Gospels, we are told that whoever perceives divine reality becomes what he sees. We have seen the divine reality because every soul was anointed in the beginning as a direct expression of God. Therefore, in our heart of hearts, we intuitively hear the inner voice speak to us of the truth of our divine self. The will of God for you is done. Carry forward eternally on wings of love, expressing as yourself the appointed one. You are the light, the first immortal one. No other exists except the illusion in mind, the lie who leads in fear. Know yourself as a shining one, eternal being of heaven and earth, the one who leads in wisdom and understanding. Master the unholy self who creates discord and blinds the vision of truth, and peace and wholeness are yours. Forgive yourself for the fallen creature you thought you were, and have mercy in your condemnance, for you have risen. Be thyself now and forevermore. These words are speaking to each one of us, to all humanity, to plant the seeds of remembering divinity, for it is the understanding on who we are that sets us free. Every being is eternal, every soul is universal, every person is divine. Only one I has ever lived, and that is the Holy Self of God. This is the truth, regardless of the individual, the place, or the circumstance. It simply is, with no possibility of refutation or denial, except from the ego. The truth about life. Life and spirit are one, unified as all and present at every point. Life is infinite unfolding joy with deep meaning and true purpose. Our life is God life, eternal, abundant, and perfect. It is a divine river without beginning or end, ever flowing from one source to quicken and vitalize us. Life is. It cannot be destroyed, created, or changed into something else. Life is the energy in expression of the divine will to good. Fully accepting this expression. Let's think about those aspects that seem less than ideal. Do we believe that certain relationships are responsible for a less fulfilling life? Or is it the scarcity of money, our health, the political arena, and government in general? Let's remove from our consciousness any and all ideas that we have been limited by someone or something in the phenomenal world. Since our life is the expression of the divine will to good, this harmony cannot prevail unless we accept it. So let's set aside and forget for a time all concerns we have about the physical, material effects we see in our lives. And somewhere along the way, as we travel to the mount, we'll discover the truth that there was nothing to be concerned about. The problems were not real. They were only thought forms projected out of mind. The truth about death, there is no death, only a continuation of eternal life. Life cannot die, consciousness cannot be extinguished. We simply take our awareness and understanding of our identity with us when we are freed of the physical body. We then find ourselves living fully on another plane of existence, and we realize that death was only an illusion of the mortal mind. I remember telling a couple of my friends that our minds live after death, that there isn't such a thing as death. We only just move from inside the house to out of the doors. I was 6 old at the time, and my friends ran home after hearing my pronouncement. It frightened them. As my wife Jane wrote in her book, The Other Side of Death, there's no such thing as death, the end of life, or the final curtain. Death is nothing more than a transition, which means passage, transformation. Who'll visit beyond the veil during a near-death experience gave her a first-hand opportunity to probe the continuity of life, the great joys that await us when we have completed our mission on the physical plane. What we are seeking on our journey is a new state of consciousness, a literal heaven of earth. But if the fear of death is packed away in the luggage of mind, it's going to make a heavy load. So let's leave it behind. Let's not worry about when or how we'll make our transition. That's up to the higher nature, our soul, which determines our time of departure. In the meantime, let's concentrate on living fully, joyfully, experiencing each moment in physical life. The truth about time. Time does not exist on the inner planes and can be altered to conform with consciousness on the outer. We can rise above the limitations of time when we understand that spiritual consciousness transcends all concepts of the human mind. However, when we are operating strictly within the confines of ego, time becomes the scapegoat. I don't have enough time. Where does time go? If I only had more time, poor time, it gets blamed for so much. No wonder it hides when we need it most. The truth is, time only has power in the physical world that we give it. Doreen Virtue, PhD and author of I'd Change My Life If I Had More Time, has written, when we believe it takes a long time to get a new career, a different home, or a better relationship, it does take a long time. But when we believe it's possible for changes to instantly occur, then they do. The bottom line is this: whatever you believe about time, that you have plenty or that you don't have enough, you are correct. There are no limits to the changes you can make in your life, and there are no time shortages except those that are self-imposed. Jane and I have worked with the idea of condensing or changing time, and it's amazing how time becomes amendable to consciousness. Let's keep that in mind while on our journey, frequently reminding ourselves that time obeys us and not the other way around. The truth about infinite possibilities. This is a loving universe where every good and perfect possibility exists. Nothing is impossible, and that includes the understanding that there is no reality in illness, scarcity, failure, or discord. With this uplifted consciousness, we see that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe where the fullness of a life more abundant is the absolute principle of being. That is when the essential self takes over, and while the manifestation appears as a healed body, financial abundance, creative success, and loving relationship, it was our spirit simply revealing the harmony that's had been there all the time. To understand this proven principle, we need only to keep our minds open and receptive to that which is considered strange, unknown, mystical, and miraculous. And as we do, we'll see the proof that all things are indeed possible. Can we accept the idea that we are multi-dimensional beings operating simultaneously on various frequencies of consciousness? Could we agree that we should be able to travel through space-time parallel to other worlds? Can we accept the possibility that healings from all manner of disease and mortal wounds can be done spontaneously? Can we open our minds to the likelihood of instantaneous manifestation of visible form of energy? Or would it not be to our advantage to understand the reality of the 22 archetypes that live in our auric fields as aspects of our divine self, so that we may have true dominion over this world? Nothing is impossible. Let's make that our mantra as we travel to the summit. Now, if God is love, is all there is, life is divine, will to do, and there is no death, time is our servant and nothing is impossible, then why do we have problems? Just where did evil originate? In preparation for our journey, let's probe the mystery of polar opposites for the answers.